the most significant update to career mode since 2016 with your new driver career, where you can choose a current F1 driver, you can choose an icon, or you can create a custom player. Talk me through the driver career and what you've added for this year as well.
We wanted to set out to offer the players something different in driver career, and with the drivers now on the grid all being huge celebrities in their own right, they've got their own successful YouTube channels, they're very active on socials. We wanted players to have the opportunity to race as their heroes, the Formula One drivers they know and love. So that was the basis of a lot of the major changes that we made to driver career. The first one obviously being I can now race as a Formula One driver as well as myself, an F2 driver and an icon, as you mentioned. And then that drives so many of the other systems. So we've always had stats in the game, driver stats. Now you have the driver stats of the driver that you're racing as. They impact your rivalry with a driver who has similar stats to you. They also feed into the contract negotiation phase. And also they obviously make a difference when you're trying to move teams as well. So all of those things sort of connect together beautifully. And then we have the accolade system as well, which we thought was really a nice touch point to the sport. So if I join as Lewis Hamilton, for example, I've already got my 7 world championships, and it's like one of your accolades will be to take the 8th. Whereas, Nico Hulkenberg, for example, take your first victory. Not Lando anymore.
Podium,
obviously he's got
podium.
podium.
Okay,
yeah. So it's nice to have those. Like, as a player who's gone in as an avatar themselves, they start with none. So their first ones are very simple. Going in as someone as Lewis, like Lewis or Max, obviously you've got those legacy ones that they've already got. Or with the icons, I mean, I think that's really cool as well to continue building upon the legacies of like Nigel Mansell, James Hunt, Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher amongst the icons we've got.
What I think is really interesting for this year is this whole career mode is based around this recognition system, which is essentially stock, right? That if you've got higher stock, then you're more likely to be approached by other teams and move forward in your career. I thought that was really interesting how that's gone from real life to F1. Was the F1 game? Is that something that you were wanting to do?
Yeah, very much so. We always look for a way to represent the players' sort of progression in the game, but also their strength within their career mode playthrough. You mentioned it obviously impacts significantly in the contract negotiation phase, amongst all of the other things they do through the contracts, the choosing the goals and targets. Yeah, so recognition obviously plays a massive part in not only the contract negotiations when you're talking with other teams, but also it's really important now with the team that you're currently with, because your teammate will be vying for the number 1 driver position. And the one thing that you don't want them is for them to be taking over the R&D, the direction of the R&D for the team. That's something you want to keep control of. So yeah, being seen as the driver with the strongest recognition means that you will control the direction of research and development for the team.
And if you're not happy with your current team, there's also options to talk to other teams, which can be risky, and it does happen in real life as well, as we've seen. But is it worth the risk for players to do that?
I mean, that's in the hands of the player, isn't it? How big a gamble is it that they're willing to take?
Yeah.
So obviously when you go into that first round of secret meetings, the likelihood that another team will find out about it is relatively low, but they might. So there's still a risk involved. Okay. By the time you reach the second round of secret meetings, the chances are at this point, as we see in the sport, somebody's spotted you entering a motorhome or maybe having a coffee with somebody. Yeah. So there's a much higher likelihood that the other teams will find out. And again, this potentially can impact your performance, your relationship with your current team.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you go into the third round of secret meetings, which at this point you've got all of the knowledge of what the team's offering you, their performance, the perks you're going to get, all of the things that you'll get by signing for that team. It's a much higher probability that the other teams will find out, your team in particular, who if you then decide to stay, your sort of stock with your current team will have decreased because you'll have shown you're no longer loyal to your current team if you're happy to have conversations with other teams.
Another thing as well for this year is cutscenes are back as well. You've added a few more cutscenes. Are they sort of situation specific, those cutscenes, and when they start? Yeah,
so the opportunity we took there was that obviously now we can focus on the real drivers in those cutscenes. So if you're playing as Lewis Hamilton, we can represent Lewis really effectively in the garage locations, getting in and out of the car, and any of those establishing scenes into the start of a race weekend. And that was something we also wanted to showcase because obviously we've done a lot of work on the character modelling as well this year, capturing a lot of the drivers again using the really fancy EA scanning equipment that we now have access to.
Yeah. Let's move on to Circuits of Realism, because we got the chance today to take on Silverstone and Spa, which have both been redesigned as well. How have you managed to incorporate that into this year's game?
Yeah, it's something that we've done several times over the years, is build structures that haven't been built yet in real life. As long as the plans are there and we have access to the reference of what they're going to build, we will strive to build those tracks ready to hit what they're going to look like when they're actually raced in real life. We've certainly had it with structures that they didn't get around to building eventually in real life, and we've removed them the following year.
Yeah.
But you'll see from sort of Jeddah as well, and from the sale, you know, a lot of the work we've done there has been dressing some of the buildings differently, the off-track areas. Again, making sure that not just the track ribbon's accurate, but also the region and the pit lane, the paddock in those areas.
Yeah, and also Silverstone as well, and Spa. You can clearly see the actual circuit itself is different, the way it's profiled and everything. How have you been able to do that? What technology have you used to be able to do that?
So we've got a lot better data these days that we're able to build the tracks from. The CAD data that we got for Spa was fantastic, gave us the opportunity to reprofile the track, to get all the corners correct. I mean, I think the thing that really stood out to you is that a lot of the runoff areas that we could take a few liberties on previously are now gravel.
Yeah.
So it's having access to much better reference data that's given us the ability to do that. And we've also got so many other points of reference that we cross-reference as well, including all the photographic data that we have as well.
Is there some that are next on the list that you haven't managed to get round to for next year?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's an ongoing project to update circuits and to continue to forge that realism.
Yeah.
It's a long, time-consuming process to build circuits, and certainly to the level of accuracy that we demand of our circuits. But yeah, that's definitely part of the long-term plan.
You talked a lot about how you've worked specifically with F1 team, F1 driver, to make sure the game is realistic as possible.
Well, we had the opportunity last year to sit down with Max, which was
Yes.
incredible. So I had an evening session where Max was able to drive some of the prototyping work that we were doing on the physics, and also for future physics. So that was really valuable. And then, as you say, you've seen Lando playing the game recently, so that's always something we always love to see, that sort of feedback. And yes, several of the teams have been really helpful as well. So we get access to the engineering side of the teams, where what they actually do is they will play the game, they'll capture the data, they'll compare some of the output to the actual real data that they have, and point us in the direction of where we might have some slight discrepancies maybe in the handling model.
Can players still go into my team mode and go into that mode as they would do last year?
Yeah, my team very much present.
Breaking point as well, is that in this year's game?
So Breaking Point's having its annual break, so that's not in this one.
Interesting. I've not seen any mention of VR yet. Is that something that is going to be updated for this year? Is there any new features of that at all? Or?
So VR's retained on PC this year,
okay.
And then along with any of the other changes we've made to the graphics modes on PC, you'll gain those within VR.
Cool. And any update on PSVR 2 at all, whether it's coming to that platform? Or?
At the moment, no, nothing on PSVR 2. Okay. Essentially, the beta is a segment of the game that we put out there, and there was a discrepancy in the handling data. It was actually not representative of what we wanted people to play and give feedback on. So the feedback that we got was actually incredibly useful, because it just validated the things that we knew were wrong in that handling.
Right.
And we obviously put that right with the next round of the beta.
There's new regulations coming in 2026, which is going to be a massive upheaval for you. Adrian Newey's a free agent at the moment. You know, everyone's talking to him. Are you guys talking to him potentially to help with the 2026?
You're not the first person who suggested that. Somebody else has suggested exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Adrian's a big gamer, but wouldn't that be amazing? That would just be something special.